We are continuing to study Surah Fatiha, and this is our 6th session on the Surah. As usual, Dr. Yamina will be leading the study, and we're welcome to join in with comments and questions. Jazakallah khair, Sister Yamina.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So this is our 6th week into Surah Al-Fatiha, the surah that we repeat the most throughout the day. Every time we're standing during the salat, during the daily prayers, we recite this surah, which is also Al-Fatiha, meaning the opening chapter of the Quran. And we stopped at the 5th ayah, which is إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. You alone we worship, and from you alone we seek help. Actually, the you there is singular in the Arabic, thou in older English. But since modern English doesn't have the singular anymore, you alone will do for the moment, inshallah. So this na'budu here is we worship, we perform ibadah, we accept and perform our being abd to you, our ubudiyah. And abd, which is usually translated as servant or worshipper, last week we discussed how it also means owned. God being the Rabb and the Malik, the owner, the master, the sustainer, and we are owned by him. He owns everything, including ourselves. So being abd of Rabbul Alameen, the sustainer of all worlds, of all things, all beings, means that we are totally meaning 100% dependent on his rububiyah, on his rahmah. And this term of abd is applied to all beings in the Quran, in Surah.
That appears to have been the same law.
In Surah Maryam, which is Surah 19, in Ayah 93, we're told everyone in the heavens or earth, let's say, comes to the Rahman, to the most compassionate, only as a servant. In kullu man fis samawati wal ardi illa ati ar-Rahmani abda. Everything is abd. Everything is owned, everything is in a state of obedience and worship to Rabbul Alameen, to the Rahman, whose rahmah we depend on totally. So now the moment we hear the term abd, servant, and some even say slave, people usually are uncomfortable with the words, and we find this, we're all somehow, when we are translating also, we don't know which word to use, because we are aware of these sensibilities in people. And usually the people who are more sensitive to these words and feel very discomfortable with it are people who have not realized yet their total dependence on their Rabb. So it's almost like there is a part of us that want to rebel, or at least to resist even the word, even the term. When we say abd, some of us may not really relate to the word in Arabic, But once it's translated as servant, or even worse, as slave, then we start like questioning it. Like, we don't want to be slave to anything, anyone. And that's because we've been created to not want to bow down, to not want to submit to any creature except God. And we talked about it last week at the end when Maha brought the point. And so it's okay to have this feeling, to not submit, to not bow down to any creature, but it's not true for God, because He is our only true. He's truly our master. He's truly our Rabb, our sustainer. He's truly our owner. So it is because we are not aware of that reality that we confuse the situation between being submitting to God, the true master, and submitting to any other false master. So this fitri inclination, it's an inclination we've been created with, this fitri inclination within us against surrendering to anything other than God. When we are in ghafla, when we are unaware of the reality, we use it to resist, to resist the reality, to not want to surrender to the reality that we are abd. It's not about whether I like it or not, it is the fact. We are abd, but abd to God. That's who we are. And that inclination to not want to submit to anything is to submit to anything other than God. When it comes to God, it is, we don't have a choice. It's not like I could choose to not be abd. I could choose to have no owner, no master at all. Actually, if I knew, when we know the meaning of what it means to have an owner and master, then it's not something that I would want to run away from. It's the other way around. It's something that I am very grateful about, because I am so weak. I have no control over, forget about the world out there, even over my life, my breathing, my nails grow and I can't stop them. I'm getting older and I can't stop myself getting older, or time, or anything like that. I'm so weak and my needs are so many. Yet, at the same time, everything is being taken care of. So the fact that I have an owner, the fact that I have a sustainer who is taking care of my needs with his rahmah, is actually something that makes us so grateful. It's not something we want to run away from. So when we use that word, and if we feel anything in our hearts that doesn't like the word submitting, and last time I used it on purpose. Usually I say surrender because we are still in the process of learning who our Rabb is. But I thought, by now we know quite much about who our Rabb is. So that surrender includes, and especially the ibadah includes, a submission as well, and obedience, and being part of us is already obedient and in submission to God. I cannot figure out another way of breathing or anything. Everything is following God's way of creation, His order of creation, His law of creation. That's how things are. And anything else is only the delusion of ghafla, of heedlessness. So the fact is that we are abd, and we need to look at the fact and figure where our confusion comes from. Each one of us has to do that to establish the fact clearly. So when that old habit of I wouldn't say rejecting, but like feeling that discomfort with some words comes, it is time for istighfar, because that's a habit of our old ways when we didn't know who our Rabb is. And so when we didn't know what abd really meant, we took it as meaning abd towards other creatures like us, which is not the case.
And also, I don't want to divert the subject, Sister Yamina, so please feel free to just stop me. But I think part of our discomfort with the term slave is because of a particular situation, a cultural situation that we find ourselves in. We live in a country where slavery had very strong racist connotations, and then even after slavery, racism has remained with us, unfortunately. So that aversion from the term also is deeply connected with aversion from racism, I think. I don't think it was only unique to this context, but I think there's more emphasis on this was a racist form of slavery. So maybe when we hear the term slave, that's why it has such a strong connotation, because nobody, I think, throughout history thought being slave is a good thing. Being slave to
that's why I didn't want to dwell on the word slave, but more on the word submit. Even the word submit, many people
exactly. I just wanted to say that, even though nobody liked the term slave before, they were, and this is just my guessing, like they were able to absorb the term. So like when I think about it in Turkish or in Arabic, the term is used for slave as well, but then it doesn't have the same connotation when it's used in the religious context, because I think over time people were able to
disconnect
it into that new context of I'm completely owned. And actually that's beautiful, that I am owned by the creator of the heavens and the earth, and I'm just proud of that. Even I remember this story from long time ago when I was young. I had read about this spiritual master. When he was walking down the street, he heard a slave, and this is a literally slave, talking to his master, and the master said, "What would you like?" He said, "I like whatever you want. I don't have my own like." And when he heard that, he fainted, because he said, "Look at this person's relationship with his master, and I don't have this relationship with my God. Like, I should totally surrender." He can recognize that being a slave is not something exciting in terms of human relationships, but then he's so focused on taking that to the new context of complete submission to God, that's what we are interested in. That's what you are trying to highlight here. It's not about slavery in the human level, where we will kind of sugarcoat the term in that sense, but it's in the sense of taking what is essential in that usage about surrender and submission to its real context.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Isra. That's true.
Dr. Yamina, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum
salam to everyone, actually. I think I was a little bit late. I didn't get that earlier part. But then what is the definition of abd from the Quranic point of view?
That's what we're talking about, Sister Esma, inshallah.
Huh?
That's what we are talking about, inshallah.
Right. Oh, okay. You're going to talk about it. Okay.
Inshallah.
Thanks.
Thank you. So the fact is that we have not decided when we were born, where we were born, how we look like, how we grow. When if you have a kid, you don't know how he will look like when he grows, or even how his personality and character will develop. And we don't know what will happen to us tomorrow, for instance, and we don't know when and where we will die, as we are told in the Quran, and as we know ourselves by observing others as well. So clearly, our life is not ours. It is a gift. It is a trust. It is only when we are in a state of ghafla, when we never question anything, when we don't reflect on the meaning of life, that we take things for granted, and it seems that we own our own life. Otherwise, it's not difficult to figure that our life is not ours. Nothing that we call ours is actually ours. It's all a gift, and it's a trust, and it's a gift here and now. It's not like it was given to me when I was born and now I am doing something to it. Even our physical appearance and our physical being, it keeps changing all the time. In Surah Luqman, if you remember, which is Ayah 31, Surah 31, Ayah 34, we're told, truly with God alone rests the knowledge of when the last hour will come, and it is who sends down the rain. He knows exactly when the rain will come, and he alone knows what is in the wombs. Yeah, we know, we can figure out it's a boy or a girl, but only after it has been decided. We cannot decide. And also whereas no one knows what he will reap tomorrow, we don't know. I don't even know if I'll be alive tomorrow. And no one knows in what land he will die. Truly, God alone is all-knowing, all-aware. Inna Allah alimun khabir. He's the only one who knows, and all these things are unknown to us. So when we remember this reality, we remember that we cannot claim ownership over anything to do with ourselves. So we can reflect more on our situation, and the more we reflect, the more we will inshallah understand how we're totally owned right here and now. We have free will, yes, but it's very limited. We can't create something out of nothing. We can't sustain our life. We can't sustain our breathing. We can't stop death. We only choose from existing options and follow the existing order, the laws of creation. And anything that seems relatively new is the result of inspiration. We are inspired, which is in itself an indication to a source of givenness, of gifting external to us. We seek help, whether explicitly through words or through our needs or through our state of being, whether consciously or unconsciously, we are in a state of seeking help. And then we are inspired and guided to the answer, the answer or the solution or an idea, whatever the context is. And so these things are given to us. When we reflect, we realize that they are given to us. I am not the source of anything. Otherwise, I would not go and search. There would be no research, no science, nothing. And there wouldn't be, sometimes you want to write something, or you want to understand something, or you want to solve a mathematical problem, and you play with it, and you're waiting until something lights up, and you say, this is the answer. Where did that answer come from? When we are careful, we realize that we call it inspiration. It means it's not coming from me, but through me. So we get to realize that we are not active creators, but we are receivers. That's why the receiving nur is inspired from. We are the receivers, we are the recipients of God's grace, of God's rahmah. So in this sense, as I mentioned last week, we are made in a way that we are in a constant state of worshiping and seeking help, because we have so many needs, and we need them to be fulfilled, and we have no power to fulfill them ourselves. And we have many longings and desires, and we wish for them to be fulfilled. And most of the time, we're unaware of this situation because we are used to a certain way, a routine way of being, of living. And so it feels as if things are happening, we are taking care of our needs, and often we only remember how helpless we are, how helpless in the sense that we have so many needs and we have a very limited power to obtain, to fulfill those needs. And it's in times of crisis that usually we realize that we are helpless. But in fact, that's who we are all the time. It's just because things are done unto us that we take them for granted and we just don't question them. It's like my breathing, you know? So in times of crisis, people are more likely to cry for help, either from God, they actually ask God for help, or from something. They don't even name it. They may not be able to name it. It doesn't matter. Meaning they are asking either consciously or not. So we are abd, we are in a state of ibadah, of worshipping, of asking for help. And so the issue is not about worshipping or not worshipping. The issue is not about seeking help or not seeking help. Everyone worships and everyone needs and seeks help, whether explicitly or not, whether consciously or not. So the fact is that we are owned and that we constantly seek help, even if it is mostly unconsciously. So we need to establish this fact, the fact that we are owned and that we are utterly in need of help and sustaining. And that's only possible when we reflect and question our daily life, our everything that we take for granted. And we question as we are taught in the Quran. This is something that I keep repeating. We are taught in the Quran how to reflect, how to question everything in order to see their truth, which is that they are ayat, they are signs, they are bearing messages and meanings from the unseen, from God. They are like mirrors reflecting the beautiful names of God.
Yes, Yamina, when you said we are always in a state of asking, the image came to my mind was getting up in the morning. So when we get up in the morning, from that moment onwards, even throughout the sleep, but just to have a starting moment, like for me to even like open my eyes and get up, like all of these systems within my body should be working, because there are people who can't wake up in the morning. They not just that they are not alive, but also they may be alive, but they have difficulty coming back. Even coming back to waking up in the morning, is there are all these beings inside us working for us. All these cells and
or
impulses.
There are people who have the fear of sleeping because they fear not waking up. And it may seem like irrational, but it makes sense, because I have nothing in my control to make me wake up. I am made to wake up. I just wake up.
Yes, because we go into the unconscious state. I mean, what will bring us back to the consciousness? And then from there on, like, you put your feet on the ground, on the floor, for you to even like have your balance and stand up. Your whole bone system and the gravity, everything has to be cooperating with you for you to be able to take that step, inner and outer. And these are just, I'm not even going down to the atomic or cellular level, just in the macro level. And then for us to be able to wash our face, the water has to cooperate with you, your skin has to cooperate,
your hands, your motions.
So it's so much that we constantly actually in a state of asking. It's just that we're not aware,
When you said early morning, I thought sometimes evening too, because what if you can't sleep? You're really tired and really exhausted and you cannot sleep. Even sleep is a gift, is a rahmah. Subhanallah. And we
yes, and we need so many things. We're asking, really, nobody can even be alive for a second if she or he is not asking, in the sense of requesting the cooperation of everything around her. And either they are cooperating on their own with us, or our maker and their maker is the same and employing them for our needs. It's just it really hit me. It's a matter of it's not a matter of asking or not asking. We're constantly in a state of asking.
So we need to be clear about that we are always in a state of asking and seeking help. And it's when we think, or when we imagine, if we imagine that we need to seek help from other helpless creatures like us, that it hurts our dignity. It's like when you said it's true that everything has to cooperate for something to be. But can you imagine? It's like I need to wait, be at the mercy of everything. Otherwise, things won't happen. So there will be the more, if there is no recognition of, no acknowledgement of Rabbul Alameen, I cannot live consciously, because the more conscious I am, the more anxious I would be, because it would be this anxiety about, yesterday everything cooperated, but tomorrow they may not. I cannot do anything about it. What if they don't? What if even one thing does not cooperate? The whole system, the whole universe will be in chaos. So it's very frightening, very scary. And that's why when we are in a state of ghafla, it goes together with a mindlessness and not thinking about what's going on, because it's too overwhelming, too scary, unless we use that anxiety to seek what's going on and make it a means to find the answer, which is they are all employed by one, Rabbul Alameen, the one who, the sustainer of all things, because they are all helpless like us, and they all need sustaining, and they are all being sustained. We can witness that when we calm down. If we calm down, we'll realize that they are being sustained, and lo and behold, someone is taking care of all of us all at the same time. So it is also a fact that we are made to abhor being at the mercy of helpless created beings like ourselves, because deep down, even if we're not conscious of it, we know that they are just as much in need of being sustained as we are. And so we don't like to be at their mercy, to be in need of them, to be seeking their help. And so this reluctance to worship anything is a good thing. Worship anything in the creation, to seek help from the things themselves. It is a protection, it is a rahmah, guiding us to seek our true owner, our true Rabb, our true sustainer, who needs nothing and no one. And he's the one whom everything needs. He is Al-Ahad As-Samad. Samad means that everything needs him and he needs nothing. That's the name of God, that we need Samad. That's why in Surah Al-Ikhlas we say, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad. Say, God is one, God is Samad. So worshipping Rabbul Alameen alone, Rabbul Alameen meaning the Rabb, the sustainer of all worlds, of all things alone, is the only way we are freed from seeking help from anything else. It is the only way we are freed from slavery to false gods, from being at the mercy of anything else. anything else, things that can't help us. Because why is it important to be freed from that the imagination, the delusion that we need them? Because if they could help us, it wouldn't be a delusion. But they cannot help us. They themselves are being created. They themselves need to be sustained. So they cannot help us. They cannot help themselves. And so they can't help themselves. And also we will be delivered and freed from fearing them, from that anxiety, because they cannot harm us. They cannot benefit us and they cannot harm us. These two are very important, repeated, and this is repeated in the Quran again and again. So there is no way out of being a worshipper. There is no way out of worshiping and seeking help. The only choice is to either worship our true Rabb, our true sustainer, who is Rabbul Alameen, who is our true owner, or we will end up by default worshipping and seeking help from other creatures like us. And that is the worst thing we can do, because they cannot benefit us, they cannot help us, they cannot do anything for us. And that's when we think that we have to, they are our source of help. That's the delusion of shirk that we are warned against in the Quran again and again, because it's the worst thing we could do to ourselves in this world, and more clearly in the next world, in the hereafter, where everything, with the truth of everything, will be clear. So we're told in the Quran, for instance, in Surah Al-Furqan, which is Surah 25, in Ayah 54, and 54 and 55, and it is God is who out of this very water has created human being and has endowed him with the consciousness of descent and marriage tie. For your sustainer is ever infinite in his power. And right after it says, and yet some people worship instead of God things that can neither benefit them nor harm them. Thus he who denies the truth does indeed turn his back on his sustainer. And why are we reminded of this again and again? It is because even though we think we are worshiping God alone, it could be just a claim. We have to look at how we live our life, what our expectations are from what. So it is the state of our heart, the state of our emotions that reflects who our true object of worship is. And since it's repeated in the Quran and again, it is a sign, an indication that this is what we do most of the time. And if we just stop and look at our lives, we will realize that truly, we often, very often, especially in the beginning, if we had no special, how do you say, ghayra, endeavor, if we never intended to really know who our sustainer is, then we are by default worshipping things without even realizing. And that's the whole thing. We cannot worship things that cannot benefit us nor harm us while being aware of it, because that would be like silly and foolish. No one does that knowingly. In Surah Al-Ankabut, which is Surah 29, in Ayah 17, we are told, what you worship instead of God are mere idols. And we talked about idols not being some statues in some corner or in some temple, but idols are our perception of things. We make things into idols if we think that something is the source of my sustenance, the source of my happiness. the source of my peace and safety and tranquility, then that thing, I'm making it into an idol. And so it says what you worship, and if I'm making it into an idol, if I think that my sustenance, it is the source of my sustenance, it means I'm seeking help from it. It means I'm worshiping it. That's what it means. Worshipping is not necessarily that I put a statue somewhere in the corner of my home and then I'm prostrating to it. Most people probably won't do that, especially Muslims. But it does not mean that we are not worshipping idols. So what you worship instead of God are mere idols. What you invent is nothing but falsehood. Those you worship instead of God have no power to provide sustenance for you. So seek sustenance from God alone. Worship Him and be grateful to Him, for you will all be returned to Him. فابتغوا عند الله الرزق واعبدوه واشكروا له إليه ترجعون. Subhanallah, it's very concise, very to the point. So if we are seeking sustenance from God alone, then it means we are worshipping Him alone, then our gratitude should go to Him alone. Alhamdulillah. And I'm grateful for things to God, not to the things themselves. And I don't I don't despair when I lose that thing. And to make it clear at the end, the stamp on all this is, for you will all be returned to Him. All, not only people, but all those objects of worship also. They are like us, it means. They are not permanent. They are all mortal. They are all transient. How can they support us? How can they help us? They cannot help themselves. And so we will all be returned to Him. And on the Day of Judgment, the truth will become apparent for all to see. Remember, Yawm al-Din. So in this world, even if we think, for instance, because I gave the example of water last time, if we think that water is quenching our thirst is still satisfied when we drink water, whatever I believe about it, even if we're not aware that who the Rabb of the water is, and therefore who our Rabb is, and who is quenching our thirst with that lifeless, unconscious water. And even if we are unaware that the pure water cannot help us in any way, cannot even help itself, cannot keep its molecules, its atoms together. But on the Day of Judgment, everyone will realize. So here, whether I know that reality, that truth or not, everyone drinks water, everyone's thirst is quenched. How? If I know my Rabb, of course, my experience of the world here and now, with that certainty of Akhirah, is going to be very different. My inner world, my soul, my heart, especially the ruh, the soul, the human soul, is going to be satisfied, is going to live in this wide worlds of feeding on the beautiful meanings of the divine names here and now, before Akhirah. And in Akhirah it will be Nurun ala Nur, light upon light. That's paradise. And Ru'yatullah, seeing the vision of God. But apparently you don't see that. That's going on inside. Outwardly, it seems like, why do I have to believe in Rabb or anything? You drink water, I drink water. So the one who drinks water, Bismillah, in the name of God, truly, and the one who just says Bismillah but has no idea of what he's doing, and thinks that water, his love goes to the water, his gratitude goes to the water, in his heart he loves the water. And he may add, Alhamdulillah, that's another story. It could be okay at the beginning, but if we remain in that stage forever, then we're missing the gist of ubudiyah and the gist of tawheed. On the day of judgment, however, everyone will realize the reality that, for instance, unconscious, lifeless, powerless water cannot quench our thirst. And unconscious, powerless food does not satisfy us, does not fill us, cannot nourish us. And in the hereafter, those who did not worship God alone here and did not seek help from their Rabb only, they sought help from the water, from the food, from the money, from other people, from conditions, from all kinds of things, then those who imagined that water and food and other things were the source of their sustenance, were the source of their benefits and their happiness, they will face the consequences of their delusion, which is the lack of rahmah, which is, it's not paradise there anymore, because you say, okay, you thought water will give you, will take care of your thirst. Here is water. Water without a divine command can't do anything. Here you are, you and the water. So the real issue is who and what do we worship, or what? Well, let's say who do we worship, and who do we believe is helping us? And most people readily will admit that created things can't help us. That's how we are wired. So most of us, unless we have other problems of resisting and rebelling and arrogance and things, other sicknesses of the heart, most of us will admit, yes, created things can't help us. And so our true and only object of worship is God. Yet in practice, there is a problem. That's why we're having these meetings. That's why we need the help and the guidance of the Quran. That's why we need to pray 5 times a day and remind ourselves and be reminded again and again of the reality, because we have this tendency to forget and to take things at face value superficially, and not to reflect on the true meaning of things. So in practice, most people become stuck in seeking help from things themselves, from people themselves, not in the name of God, not consciously, and totally forget about the connection with Rabbul Alameen, with our Rabb, with our sustainer. Because unless we consciously question what's going on in the world around us, it feels as though things are just happening somehow, as Isra gave in the example this morning. It seems like I wake up, I wash my face, and I don't even think, how did I wake up? How many times do we stop and think about it? It's just happening somehow. Somehow I breathe, I see, I talk, I think, I sleep, I wake up, I do this, I do that. I make things, I bake my bread or maybe some nice cake, and I create things somehow, and I never stop and ask, who is doing this? How am I doing this? Really? Am I really breathing? Am I the one doing it? What's going on? Yes, I am breathing in the sense of you are not breathing for me. That's okay when we use the language like that. But if we think that truly I am the one sustaining the breathing and creating it, then there is a problem there. And that's the problem of not thinking, not reflecting. That's the problem of ghafla, of mindlessness, of heedlessness.
And also this language is, I think, seeping into our daily usage, maybe more and more. Like I keep hearing this term, we are co-creating our reality. Like there's truth in that. The reality is created for each person, according to her choices. So in that sense, they are trying to make a truthful emphasis there. You know, watch how you perceive the world, watch what kind of choices you're making, watch out for your false beliefs. Do you believe that it is an abundant world, or it is a world of insufficiency, and so on? But then the term seeps in, and you know, we are co-creating our reality, or you create your own life or reality or your own happiness. Like, it's unfortunate because it comes from that same confusion that I have choices, but then I'm not the creator at all.
That is true, Isra, but I think like the average person who does not use that word or does not think that much is not in a better place. Actually, maybe not that person who says we are co-creating is at least aware that my perception is not what's going on out there, and is saying that let's change our perception and let's be more careful about our choices. But the average, I'm talking about the average believer, I'm talking about Muslims mostly, are not even there. There is no, it's just like, I am a Muslim, things are going on, God created us, no one really thinks about what does God created us means. And in that mode of being, let's say, I am the one breathing. It's not even I am the one breathing. No, it's an absence of any statement. It's not I'm co-creating or not co-creating. It's an absence of any statement, but by default, when we live in that state of being, we are perceiving the world without the connection to its Rabb, to the creator, to the maker. And so however much we add the Bismillah at the beginning and the Alhamdulillah, in fact, God is not there at all in my daily life. So it's not even a statement. I have not done any work in that way of being in ghafla. So when I say I breathe, I say, yeah, but I didn't mean that I am the one breathing. Yes, but I didn't also mean I am not the one breathing, it is done unto me. It means, Imam Nursi, rahimahullah, he says, not denying God does not mean that you believe in God and you know who he is. So there is a lack of we're not denying, but we're not even confirming anything. And by default, it becomes, even though I'm not saying I am the one doing the breathing, unless I am clear about who is sustaining my breathing, it feels to me as though I am breathing. That's why I'm saying it feels as though things are just happening somehow. It feels as though I'm breathing. It feels as though I'm seeing, I'm talking, I'm thinking, because I never thought about it. I never reflected about it. That's why in the Quran we are invited to use our hearts and reason with our hearts and question things and stop taking things for granted. So in the world of ghafla, there is darkness, there is no connection to God as Rabb. He is not our Rabb. Things are small Rabbs. They are taking care of themselves, and I am also a small Rabb in my small sphere, because it seems as though I am doing things. It seems that I light the fire and the water boils. And it seems like very obvious that the fire produces heat and the heat boils the water. And I don't question it. That's clear to me when I'm in that state. And how many of us ever wondered at the miracle of fire, the miracle of heat. For instance, we put a gooey mixture in the oven, which means heat again, and then lo and behold, it changes texture, appearance, colors, it smells good, it tastes good, and we just take it for granted. We say, yes, I'm baking. What does it mean? You just put in, just because I put a name? Yes, baking is a good, language-wise, it's a code. So we understand what's going on, but it does not explain the miracle of what's going on in the oven. And as you had, Isra said before, like the whole, lots of things have to cooperate for me to be able to wake up, or to be able to to stand up, or to see, or lots of things, and the whole laws of the universe and lots of things have to cooperate for the water to boil, and for the cake to bake, to become a cake, for instance.
I just wanted to note, just for food for reflection or food for thought, to apply these insights, there is a TED Talk that's called A Stroke of Insight. It's one of the most popular ones on TED, and it's exactly the story of a neuroscientist waking up in the morning, and she has a stroke, and her whole perception of the world changes, and even the smallest tasks take her like 45 minutes to just dial in a phone number for emergency help. So like the whole way she sees the world completely changes, and this is something we take for granted, as she has taken for granted, that you get up in the morning and everything is going to be the same. And just as a footnote,
we all do. We have that tendency anyway. So it's not like one of us is better. That's why we have to realize this in order to appreciate how much we need the guidance of the Quran, how much we need that remembrance, that dhikr, that remembering, how big of a rahmah, of a blessing it is that we have to pray 5 times a day, because by the time we start forgetting, we are reminded again, if we understand the meaning of the prayers, inshallah, and the meaning of what we are reciting in Surah Al-Fatiha, for instance, inshallah. So it is something that is so easy to get there, because we don't need to affirm it. We don't need to say, I am the one breathing, I am the one seeing. No, we don't need to do that. Just by not noticing, realizing who is sustaining my breathing and who is therefore my Rabb in the breathing, I don't see any connection with my Rabb. So I am living, although I'm not saying I'm the one doing it, I'm acting and feeling as though I were the Rabb there, as though I was taking care of, I was doing it. So I'm not making a statement about it, but my way of living and perceiving is my statement. That's why let's not that lack of statement, deceive us. Let's not feel that, oh, I'm safe because I never claimed this. We're not saying it with words, but that's how we're living. And in order to avoid that situation, we have to confirm who our Rabb is in everything as much as we can, inshallah, and remember God and make tasbih, glorify Him with everything, and see how the breathing itself is glorifying God. And so I start glorifying Him and say Subhanallah, because the more I think about the breathing, the more it's amazing. And the more you know about the human anatomy, how we breathe, how other living beings breathe, the more we're amazed and we just prostrate before God's knowledge and wisdom and rahmah. And the more we know how the breathing is connected to the rest of the universe, to the world, to the laws of chemistry and physics and everything else, to how air outside is being cleaned and everything, the more it is impossible not to glorify God and worship Him and be grateful to Him alone. So we need to see the difference between the two and how much we are in need of the guidance of the Quran, inshallah. So
that's a question comes to my mind here. Okay, maybe it's the ego's question. Maybe it's coming from there, but the question is this: is there something good in our being forgetful to some extent, in the sense that it is not possible to notice everything at the same time? So, like, if I focus on my breathing, then I forget my heartbeat. I can't focus on it. If I focus on that, I don't focus on gravity or my thoughts.
But so, we're not responsible for being aware of everything. We are responsible of being in the presence of God all the time, 24/7. What we make our means of being in His presence and glorifying Him will be whatever is within our focus that time. So we are not responsible for what didn't you worship God with things that were far away or with everything at once. That's not the point. However, we are created with forgetfulness, and that's good, because remembering makes sense because we can forget. But however, having the potential to forget is different than living constantly in forgetfulness. We can't say, oh, God created us forgetful, and so therefore I forget. We don't do that in our life. We don't forget things that are important for us. And actually, because we know that we can forget, we take action, we take in order to remember. So that work of taking measures in order to remember is part of the ibadah, is part of the endeavor to seek help from God. So there's no problem, inshallah.
That's alhamdulillah. That's really nice. So it's more like we are riding on different waves to get back to the.
Yeah, and we are not even getting there ourselves. That's why we're seeking help, even for ibadah. We are seeking help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So and it starts with small things.
Come into focus, as it were, like different signs of God come into focus as we, live through life, and each day, every moment. Some things can recede to the background. Some things come into foreground. That's okay. But the point is to try to kind of keep that awareness of seeing these pointers to God, and not
That's the beauty of it, keeping that everything keeps changing all the time. And our focus also changes all the time. It doesn't matter what you are eating. What matters is that you have some food and you are full. As long as it's healthy. Who said that you have to eat all the food all the time, all at once? No. So what matters is to have that intention to look, to question things and we start with things that we take for granted. Like I said, like we have this mixture, a gooey mixture, I put in the oven, and it seems when I take it for granted that of course it smells good. It's a cake. Of course it tastes good. It's, I don't know, it's my mother's recipe. What does it mean? But if we think about it a little bit, and it feels like, of course, with the heat, if you have the right amount of heat, it will be cooked nicely, baked nicely. Yeah, but look, if you heat it too much, it won't be good. If it's too little, it will be still gooey at the end. If I leave it, even if it's the right temperature, if I forget it in the oven, it burns, subhanallah. If the heat was doing the work, so if I leave it a little longer, wouldn't it make it a little better? No, it burns, subhanallah. So when we start, when we have that intention of questioning, as we are taught in the Quran, then we start finding signs and indications to rububiyyah in everything. For instance, if we reflect on what's actually involved in that process, we'd realize that the whole universe, so many things are involved, so many things have to be the way they are in order for that baking to occur, subhanallah. And so it is for the water to boil, etc., etc., for me to stand, for my voice to reach someone else and to make sense. I make some sounds. I want to express an idea, its meaning. Meaning is something non-physical. And I express its bit sounds. And lo and behold, the other person hears it and understands it and has a rational and emotional response. Isn't that a miracle? I think everything is miraculous if we stop and reflect. Otherwise, it will seem that things are happening themselves, just like I am breathing, I am seeing and speaking, then the water is boiling or the heat is boiling it, and the fire is producing the heat, and so on and so forth. And that's why in the Quran, we're again and again asked about, like on the Day of Judgment, you will be asked about those things that you thought were partners to God, those things that you thought were creating on their own. In Surah Al-Qasas, for instance, which is Surah 28 in Ayah 62, we're told, on the day when He, God, meaning God, summons them, He will say, where are they, those you falsely claimed were my partners? It will be said to them, now call those you worshipped as partners. And they will call them, but receive no answer. You will put the water on the fire won't heat, because the fire heats bi'idhnillah, by God's command, not on its own. On its own, fire can't do anything. There is a whole system so that the fire is working that way. It's like the example that I usually give is someone saying, without the bulb, there will be no light. Yes, true, but it doesn't mean that the bulb is doing it. It's just because the system is so that part of the whole system is the bulb. But the bulb on its own cannot do anything. If you claim that it's the bulb who is doing it, then okay, here you are. Get a bulb and go and see if you have any light. So they will call their partners, the partners they were worshipping in this world, but receive no answer. They will see the suffering and wish they had followed guidance. فدعوهم فلم يستجيبوا لهم ورأوا العذاب لو أنهم كانوا يهتدون. They wish they had followed guidance. So this guidance is very, 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 very important in this world, and we will realize even more the importance of this, following this guidance in the hereafter, but it will be too late. We better realize it now, and we realize it to the extent that we realize our needs for it, because that day it will be too late. So we need to make sure we're worshiping the right owner, the right master, the right Rabb, the right creator here in this life. We need to question our perception of things, of events. And sadly, we seldom question anything. And so we accept things at face value. And we live in the delusion, the delusion of shirk, the delusion that things do have some power. Somehow, we don't state that openly, but we act as though they have some power to create. And of course, we're projecting our own self-image onto them, because somehow I'm standing up, I'm speaking, I'm alive. I don't even realize that I'm sustained in life. And somehow waters give life. Somehow fire produces heat. Can't you see? I bake wonderful cakes, etc., etc., without perceiving the connection of those events, of those happenings with the Rabb, who is also my Rabb. And so we can't be truly grateful to God alone if I perceive the world this way. Even if I say the words Alhamdulillah, in my heart I cannot feel the gratitude for God alone, because I don't know him as my Rabb, the Rabb of everything. And so we cannot feel it in our heart unless we perceive things as they are, meaning as gifts from God, as his ibad, that are acting also because of his rububiyyah. They are channels of his rububiyyah. As his ayat, they are bearing messages from him about his beautiful names, about his beautiful rububiyyah, about his rahmah. And so for that to happen, to live in that state, we need to consciously stop taking things for granted and follow the teachings and the guidance of the Quran. For instance, we are told in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, which is Surah 56, from ayah 68 to 74. I didn't take the whole thing, just a small, short passage, but it gives us an idea. We told, have you ever considered the water which you drink? The questioning starts well before ayah 68, but I just started from water because I gave the example of water. Have you ever considered the water which you drink? Is it you who causes it to come down from the clouds? Or are we here is God, the cause of its coming down? It comes down sweet, but were it our will, we could make it burningly salty and bitter. Why then do you not give thanks? Why aren't you grateful? Have you ever considered the fire which you kindle? Is it you who have brought into being the tree that serves as its fuel? Or are we the cause of its coming into being? Is it we who have made it a means to remind you of us and a comfort for all who are lost and hungry in the wilderness? Extol then the limitless glory of your sustainer, mighty name. So it says at the end, فَسَبِّحْ بِاسْمِ رَبِّكَ الْعَظِيمِ. We can only make tasbih of our Rabb's name when we question these things, when we realize that water is not coming from the sky on its own, that it is given, it is created, it is sustained, that the fire is not happening on its own, that the fuel is also created, that the whole thing is given to us as a gift, and that it says, why aren't you grateful to God alone then? He is the one who is sending you all these things as a means to remind us of God, of his rububiyyah, of his rahmah, because these things are all a means of comfort and of sustenance. So it's not enough to claim that God creates everything and then stop at that claim without ever confirming it. We need to confirm that indeed God creates everything means God creates this water. God is sustaining my seeing, my drinking, my everything. Unless I do that, I would not know God as my Rabb, and God creates everything will be just a claim. better than denying, but not enough. Not enough to realize my ubudiyah. Because unless I confirm it by observing it, by witnessing his creativity in the world, by witnessing God's rububiyyah in every event, not in every event I have to go and confirm all of them, but in the event that I get to experience. And if I get to experience, to confirm his rububiyyah in the events that I experience, I know that if my breathing is sustained, there is no way to go and check everyone's breathing, not only human beings, but other animals and other living beings, because I can use that as a unit of measurement that everything is sustained and their breathing is all sustained by the same Rabb, the Rabbul Alameen. In that sense, I'm using in that sense. But we need to confirm Tawheed. We need to confirm God's rububiyyah and his rahmah in everything. Otherwise, by default, we would be living in a state of negating it, in a state of being unaware of it. In Surah Al-Zukhruf, which is Surah 43, again from a passage from Ayah 84 to 87, so 3 ayats, we are told, for then they will come to know that it is He, God means He alone, who is God in heaven and God on earth. So God is not in heaven and now on earth I do whatever I want. But I believe in God, He's no. In the Quran, God is everywhere. And that He alone is truly wise, all-knowing. And hallowed be His, be He. وَتَبَارَكَ He, unto whom the dominion, the mulk, the ownership over the heavens and the earth and all that is between them belongs, and with whom the knowledge of the last hour rests. And you see, the last hour is always mentioned because ghafla is when we forget about the last hour, meaning we forget that here and now everything is ending. It doesn't mean one day it's ending. That is included, but it's also included that right now everything is passing. And with whom the knowledge of the last hour rests, and unto whom you all shall be brought back. You will be returned to him. And those whom they invoke besides God do not possess the power of intercession, only those who bore witness to the truth and have full knowledge. And if you ask them who created them, they are sure to say, God. So why are they so deluded? And this is repeated many, many times in the Quran. If you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they will say God. If you ask them who created them, they will say God. Why are they so deluded? Why are they invoking and asking help from other things and worshipping other things? So these are messages and guidance for us, not for the ones who do not read and study the Quran. So they are guidance for the followers of the Quran. In Surah Al-Ghafir, which is Surah 40, Ayah 59 to 68, we are told, truly, the last hour is sure to come. Of this there is no doubt, yet most people will not believe it. It does not mean that these people are denying it. No. It's talking about us. Not denying it is not enough. That's only the beginning. Unless we confirm it and affirm it and live accordingly, then we are living as though we don't believe it. So what's the point in claiming that, yes, the last hour is sure to come, but if I have never confirmed it, what I'm saying is a false claim, because in my heart, I'm not sure. So we have to learn that there is a difference between affirming and confirming things and just repeating. In the beginning, it's okay to repeat, but with the intention to do the work and to find out that, is it truly so? How can I confirm this? So the last hour is sure to come. Of this there is no doubt, yet most people will not believe it. But your sustainer, your Rabb says, call unto me, I shall respond to you. Truly, they who are too proud to worship me will enter hell abased. And hell is where there is no God's rahmah, because they never seen the connection with God's rahmah. They think things are happening on their own. Okay, they will get their perception of things. That's hell. No God, no rahmah, no connection to God. It is God, I'm carrying now from the Quran, ayah 61. It is God who has made the night for you so that you might rest therein, and the day to make you see. Behold, God is indeed limitless in his rahmah unto people. But most people are ungrateful. Such is God, your sustainer, your Rabb, the creator of all that exists. There is no God except him. How can you be so deluded? This is how deluded are those who deny God's ayat. It is God who has made the earth a resting place for you, and the sky a canopy, and has formed you, and he's formed you so well, and provided you with sustenance out of the good things of life. Such is God, your sustainer. Hallowed then is God, the sustainer of all the worlds, Rabbul Alameen. He is ever living. There is no God except him. Call then unto him alone, sincere in your faith in him. All praise is due to God, the sustainer of all the worlds. Again, repeated. This is the next ayah. And then 66 says, say, since all evidence of the truth has come to me from my Rabb, my sustainer, I am forbidden to worship any of those things whom you invoke instead of him. And I am bidden to surrender myself to the sustainer of all the worlds. Can you see? The sustainer of all the worlds is repeated in ayah 64, ayah 65, ayah 66. And in ayah 67, we are told it is he who creates you out of dust, and then out of a drop of fluid. Then from a tiny clinging form, then he brings you forth as infants. Then he allows you to reach maturity. Then he lets you grow old, though some of you die sooner, and reach your appointed term, so that he allows you to reach your appointed term, so that you may use your reason and reflect. It is he who grants life and deals death. And when he wills a thing to be, he but says unto it, be, and it is. Can you see how beautiful the guidance of the Quran is? There's no claim God is a sustainer of the world just like that. First, God tells us what he does and how he brings us from a drop of fluid, and how he brings us until we die, how he is our sustainer, and then says God is a sustainer of all the worlds. And therefore, since all this evidence is given of the truth has come to me from my sustainer, then I am forbidden to worship anything that you invoke instead of him. Because all those things, why should I worship them? They are being created just like me. And I am bidden to surrender myself to Rabbul Alameen. Subhanallah. Just so beautiful. وَأُمِرْتُ أَنْ أَسْلِمَ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Subhanallah. So nothing other than Rabbul Alameen, nothing than the sustainer of all worlds, which is repeated 3 times in this passage. Nothing other than, no one other than the master and owner of everything, including the day of judgment, possesses the power of be and it is. فَإِنَّمَا يَقُولُ, he says at the end, if he wills anything, he just says be anything. And nothing has that power except Rabbul Alameen. And only when we stop perceiving things as the source of benefits and seeing the source of rahmah behind them, the source of rahmah that they indicate, only then we will be worshipping God alone without shirk. So everyone will have to put your hands on your heart and ask yourself, how do you feel about things? Does it feel that they are the source of benefit? Then it's time for istighfar. And the istighfar is not only word, it is word, but it is also going and doing the questioning and doing the reflecting and going and observing. Can it be truly so? Astaghfirullah that I forgot. Astaghfirullah that I was in ghafla, that I forgot the reality that this thing cannot do anything to me. It cannot even help itself. And the more istighfar we do this way, meaning consciously, reflectingly, the more we will end up with alhamdulillah, with gratitude to God alone. Gratitude for the thing that we thought was the source of benefit, which now we perceive as a gift, we perceive as an ayah indicating him, we perceive as a mirror, mirroring his beautiful attributes, his beautiful names, and gratitude for being in that state of awareness. So it's gratitude within gratitude and to God alone. And we feel it in our heart, and we feel that overwhelmed with that awe. We feel like going into sajda, into a state of prostrating before God. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. In Surah An-Nur, which is Surah 24 in Ayah 55, we are told that God will grant the believers, those who believe and do good deeds, He will grant them security to replace their fear. And we're told they worship me and not join anything with me. Those who are defiant after that will be the transgressors. So, يعبدونني لا يشركون بي شيئا. So God says these people who believe and do good things, good deeds, So worshiping God, normally we say, okay, they worship me. No, they worship me, and they do not join anything with me. They do not commit any shirk, because worshiping God alone means no shirk. Nothing is the source of any benefit, any goodness, any perfection. Everything is only a channel, a gift, a channel to His rahmah, to His benefits. He is the source of all goodness. So the issue is, we said, is about who we worship. And once we realize that it is God, our Rabb, our sustainer, then our new issue as believers now is not, shall we worship things or shall we worship God? No, now it is about making sure that we are worshiping God alone. We are worshiping our true Rabb, sustainer alone, and not forgetting and falling into the old habits of ghafla, of imagining that things, without realizing, imagining that things are helping us somehow. So when we are awake, when we are conscious and in our right mind, there is no way we can worship or seek help from anyone or anything but God. I mean, it would be insane to seek help for anything created. Insane if we are conscious of what we are doing. But in ghafla, we live in the delusion of unquestioned belief, unquestioned misperceptions. And so we end up acting and living as though things could help us in themselves, from themselves. And that way, with that delusion, we end up harming ourselves in this world. We don't fulfill the true purpose of our life. And in the next, because of the consequences, we miss all the beautiful names. We miss, we don't get to know who truly our Rabb is, who truly the source of all rahmah, all mercy, and all compassion, and all goodness is. what else can we miss? I mean, that's the most important thing in this life and in the next. And that's why the ayah, the إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين, we only you we worship and only you we seek help. The ayah doesn't say we worship you. We worship you in Arabic is na'buduka. No, it says إياك نعبد, meaning you alone we worship. So that emphasis is very important, because when we say we worship God, okay, then in Surah An-Nur, we were told they worship me and they don't commit shirk. Because unless we add not committing shirk, we could be worshiping God and worshiping other things, and it's a mess. And that's not truly worshiping God. We will be deluding ourselves. So as a rahmah for us, to make it clearer, to make it easier, to make, because this is a tarbiyah, the ayah itself is a manifestation, a reflection of rububiyyah. How we are made to realize things slowly, one by one, and very clearly, so that we don't get confused. So we are not told, na'buduka, we worship you. No, we are told to say, you alone we worship. Subhanallah. And the kaf, yaka, the kaf there, it's a singular you, thou. Thou alone also implies we worship, in the hadith we are told, worship your Rabb as if you were seeing him, meaning worship him with ihsan. And so this ayah, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, is a declaration of submission to God alone, of worshiping God alone, seeking help from God alone. And we are declaring, meaning that we're declaring that we will not submit to anything but God. That is part of it, because we are saying you alone, thou alone, nothing else. That nothing else is important, and it requires a conscious, intentional choice. And because we are created as worshippers, I repeat this because I find it very important and we keep forgetting it. We only have the choice to choose our object of worship. We can worship our true Rabb or false objects of worship, adoration. And so to worship our true Rabb, it means we worship him alone, and we cannot be worshiping other things and expecting goodness and help from other and benefits from other things other than God at the same time. These two things cannot go together. We either worship God or other things. We cannot be worshiping God with other things, because the moment I am saying something is the source of benefit, it means in that area there is no God, there is no Rabb. That thing in itself, how can it exist on its own? Where is Rabbul Alameen? That's why Rabbul Alameen is so important. His rububiyyah encompasses everything. So it means that we worship God alone, and therefore we are grateful to him alone. We're grateful to everything else because they are his gift. We are grateful to him for them. And we prostrate to him, meaning that we obey him alone. We follow his guidance alone. Because sometimes it feels like, okay, I follow guidance, but like lots of things in our lives, we don't feel the need for guidance because we feel that we know what to do with our lives, how to live our life. And that's all the delusion of ghafla. That's, how do we know? Who knows? Who told us that that's the right way to live? That's the true purpose of our life. Only our Rabb knows, and he only can tell us what it is, and he alone will help us in its fulfillment. He He creates it as well. We only make the choice. We only ask. In Surah Fussilat, which is Surah 41, Ayah 37, we are told, and again, you see, before we are told anything to do with God, always there is a reference to the creation, to His creation, to the world of observation, Alim al-Shahada, the world of witnessing, where we can see His ayat. So it's not a claim, but it is knowledge, wisdom, based on observation, on witnessing. So we told, now among His ayat, among His signs, are the night and the day, as well as the sun and the moon. Do not prostrate to the sun or the moon, but prostrate yourselves before God, who has created them, who has created the sun and the moon. And the sun and the moon could be anything created. It is Him. If it is Him, you truly worship. If you truly worship God, then you prostrate yourself before God alone and before nothing else, because anything else, He is the one who creates it. And this worshiping means obeying, means giving importance, means spending time for it, means adjusting all our life and our schedules and everything around it. It's our priorities. That's what it means to worship. Again, it doesn't mean only bowing and prostrating. So ibadah, or worship of God, can only be done intentionally, consciously. And that state of being in conscious ibadah, knowing that I am a abd, meaning I am great, I see and witness the rububiyyah, His rububiyyah around me and within me, that state is called ubudiyyah. And in one of our monthly teleconferences, when we used to have monthly teleconferences, I had discussed the meaning of ibadah and ubudiyyah within the Quranic context, of course. And so these two terms have different connotations. Ibadah usually refers to fulfilling our obligations of being God's servants or being His abd. Like, for instance, fasting, doing the prayers. While ubudiyyah, like servanthood, is about living in the consciousness of being a abd. And I remember the example of, if you're a physician, if you're a doctor, you don't forget that you're a doctor, ever, especially when you are in the hospital. But for some reason, we feel that, how am I going to remember all the time that I'm an abd? There is a problem. If we know what abd is, and if we accept it, if we celebrate it, if we are grateful for it, then there's no problem about forgetting. We only forget things that we are not very interested in. Everything else we remember. We don't remember. If you're a teacher, you don't remember you're a teacher. You don't forget going to school or to college, to your class. So how come when it comes to being abd, we think it's, how can I always remember 24/7 I am a abd? Isn't that too much? No. The question itself betrays a lack of understanding, a lack of surrendering, and probably the lack of surrendering, unless there is ill intention, it's about a lack of knowledge. We don't know what it means. So ubudiyyah is that constant awareness that we are abd, meaning that we exist through God, through His rububiyyah, through His rahmah, that here and now, my life as well as everything I supposedly own in this world, whatever I think is I own, whether within me or around me, everything is His gift. Everything exists and subsists through His creativity, through His rububiyyah, through His rahmah. And therefore, everything is under His sole control only. And this is not obvious. This needs tafakkur until it becomes our reality. It becomes something that I am at peace with in my heart. So it starts with understanding, reasoning, and reflecting, but the reflection has to involve the heart. I need to feel the awe, feel the gratitude, and it's something so beautiful that I don't want to forget. It's the other way around. Each time I remember that I'm a abd, I'm relieved. Alhamdulillah. Can you imagine if I was not a abd, it would mean that I would have to figure things out myself. Alhamdulillah that I have a Rabb, and that everything around me is a Rabb, because I'm concerned about the well-being of other creatures, not only human beings, but all kinds of creatures in the world. Not only in times of crisis and evil things like wars and things and dangers, but even if everything is fine, they are going to die. If there is nothing after death, that makes us sad and we grieve. So that's also a sign that I need a Rabb. I am so grateful that my Rabb has control not only over this world, but Rabbul Alameen, all world, including the worlds of the hereafter. Alhamdulillah, هذا من فضل ربي. So Ubudiyya is a conscious response, an acknowledgement of Rububiyyah. And it is the awareness, being aware of my Rabb's gift, my Rabb's blessings, my Rabb's rahmah, and rejoicing in the manifestation of his Rububiyyah, of his rahmah, in the world, in my life, around me, within me, outside of me, and celebrating it, appreciating it by praising him. Alhamdulillah, praising him alone and worshipping him. And ibadah is the act of worshipping. When I say Alhamdulillah, when I say Alhamdulillah and then go and help someone who is in need, go and give charity, give help to someone who is in need, when I go and fast to remember this reality, those acts of worshipping are ibadah. And so ibadah is closely related to ubudiyya, because if to the extent that I live in ubudiyya, what I do is an act of worship and it's ibadah. Because if I don't believe, imagine someone who does not believe in God at all and does the daily prayer. That wouldn't be ibadah, right? It's easy to understand that, because that's not worship of God. He's just doing the motions. Or fasting, he's just being hungry and thirsty. So ibadah is ibadah to the extent that I am in a state of ubudiyya, that I accept and acknowledge my being a abd. And so they are related in the sense that ibadah brings us closer to God when and to the extent that it is rooted in ubudiyya, the consciousness of being abd. And at the same time, ibadah nurtures and strengthens our ubudiyya, our sense of being abd, what being abd means to us. So ubudiyya is like the inner aspect of being abd, and ibadah is the outer aspect, is the way we manifest it, the way we reflect it in the world. And both of them are part of this na'budu. This na'budu cannot happen only, it's not only an action, an outward action. It's an inner state of knowing, being a abd, and acting accordingly in the name of God. And so this worshiping God alone is so important. Remember, it's the essence of our purpose in life, as we are told in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. God says, I have not created jinns and humans to any end other than they may know and worship me. And we can now confirm the meaning of this ayah after understanding what ibadah, what worship is. And the first meaning, we have to understand what ubudiyya is, what being a abd is. We are abd. My breathing is being sustained. Everything is the how do you say, reflecting his rububiyyah. So the more I realize his rububiyyah, the more I realize that I'm a abd. And so, as I said at the beginning, whether I accept it or not, we are all worshipping. And we are all worshipping. So we want to consciously acknowledge who is our true object of worship, meaning who is our true Rabb, our true sustainer. And so when we understand what Ya'budun is, what worshipping is, then it becomes easy to understand that truly this is the goal and purpose of our life in general, and this is going to be manifested in particular ways for different individuals. And that's why in the Quran we are told in Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, Ayah 21, Ya ayyuhan nasu ubudu rabbakum, O people, worship your Rabb. In Surah 6, Ayah 102, we are told, Dhalikumullahu rabbukum. That is God, your sustainer, your Rabb. La ilaha illahu. There is no God, no deity, nothing worth worshipping except Him. Khaliqu kulli shay. Why there is nothing worth worshipping except Him? Because He's the creator of everything, meaning you can understand. If He's the creator of everything, means everything is created by Him, so nothing, if they are created, they cannot be worshipped. They are themselves worshipping. It means they are themselves being in need of being sustained. فَاعْبُدُوهُ. Worship Him then alone. Because He is the one who has everything in His care. And in Surah 3, Ayah 51, and Surah 19, Surah Maryam, Ayah 36, we are told, He is truly God is my sustainer as well as your sustainer. Rabbi wa Rabbukum. Fa'buduh. So worship Him alone. Hada siratul mustaqim. This is a straight path. So the straight path, meaning the only path that leads to a destination, that doesn't lead to nowhere, that leads to the source that leads us to fulfill the purpose of our life, is to worship God alone, because He is my sustainer as well as your sustainer. He's the sustainer of all things. He creates all things. Subhanallah. There are so many other ayats like this. So worship is about submission. It is about humility. And so it's interesting that we are told you alone, we worship. We are not told I worship. Instead of I, it's we. And so the pronoun we here sort of removes any possibility of egotism, any possibility of arrogance, and prepares us for the path of humility, the path of submission, the path of you're part of everything you created. Like, it's not I worship. Everything worships and you are one of them. Subhanallah. And another point, as we describe the worship as our own act, it could create an impression that we may think that we are doing something, I'm doing the worshiping. So as if we can start forgetting and start thinking that we are independent from our Rabb. And remember, we are totally dependent on our Rabb in existence, in subsistence, in power, in will, everything. We have nothing from ourselves. And so, because the fact is we are His abd, His ibad, and abd owes nothing, because abd himself is owned. So the second sentence is, and from you alone we seek help. So it removes the possibility of misunderstanding that we are doing the worship. Even the worship is, I cannot do it without your help. It means we ascribe the worship to ourselves and make this claim only with your help. Even the worship, which is just to acknowledge our ubudiyya, our being abd, is also a gift from you. We do it with, we need your help. Because if the moment I think I am going to worship God, I will find out, I will figure this out, again, I will fall into arrogance and I won't feel the need, won't appreciate the value of God's, of divine guidance, and I won't feel the need to follow and obey his guidance, because I will think, oh, I can think it myself, I can figure it out. No, no, no. We need his help for even for worshiping him, since we are never independent of his sustaining in all aspects. So the complete ayah, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, you alone we worship and we alone we seek for help, has different connotation, different meanings. It can be understood separately and together. And you note here that we seek for help. There is no mention what it is that we seek help for. There's no object, which has been understood as indication to many possibilities. For instance, that absolutely everything is included because we're totally 100% dependent on God's help. So to state anything would be to limit the absoluteness of our needs. And if we were to want to even mention our needs, we wouldn't be able to count them or list them as we are told in the Quran. And in special occasions, like our needs are being taken care of, but sometimes there are situations where we think we need something more specifically, then shouldn't we have something here? No, because God knows what we need. So there is that trust that he knows. We just say we seek help from you, and that's enough, inshallah. And because even when we are listing what we need is for us, not for him. He doesn't need us to tell him what we need. And what we need is not always what we truly need. And there is also, some scholars said, the fact that if you are in danger, for instance, if you need something very, very much, like say, urgently, then we don't go around spelling, saying, oh, when we're crying for help, we don't say, I need this and that. You just say, help. So in all cases, what matters is that he alone is the source of all helps. And scholars of the Quran have also said many things about the miracle. Imam Badi'u Zaman Sa'id Nursi, he talks about the miracle of the noon. The noon in Na'budu and Nasta'in is the we in English. We worship. So it's called the miracle of the noon. It means that the fact that we use the first person plural, we worship, instead of I worship. So the noon could be indication also to various meaning, and that's the beauty of the Quran. The language also is ayah, as we are told in the Quran, as the Quran calls its component, ayah. But it's not only the units that are ayats, the words, even the letters, even this letter, na, one letter, we, is also an ayah. So it could be, has been understood, I'm particularly referring to Imam Nursi rahimahullah's work. We worship could refer to myself. And why do I say we? Why not I? Because I am not a simple being. We're complex beings. We have so many feelings, so many emotions. Even our physical being is made of so many organs, members, parts, cells, atoms that all come together by his command, subhanahu, to make this body that I'm using. So So when I say we with that awareness, it starts putting me in that mode of ubudiyya, because all these things are given to me, put at my disposition, at my, given to me, made subservient to me. Subhanallah. And another way could be that we all worship, all meaning all the believers, all the ummah. We all worship God alone, and we worship you, God, through obedience to your Sharia in the Quran. And so Imam Nursi says that that single letter Noon is a miracle, indicating the benefits of praying in congregation, for instance. So when we say during the Salat, you alone we worship, and you alone we seek help from, all Muslims, all believers participate in each other's supplication, and they all corroborate it. It's like everyone is saying Ameen to the other one, and including everyone in their prayer. And he says how he felt part of this huge congregation in the mosque where he was, but not only where he was, and even if you're not in a mosque, you're still part of the congregation, because the congregation is not only in the mosque he was, he says, the whole world, all the mosques, all the congregations, all the people praying in the world, saying, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, were part of the same prayer, the same supplication. And as well, then he says, not only the congregation in that time, but everyone, all the congregation and all the praying believers in the past, from the time of the Prophet ﷺ to the future, to Yawm al-Qiyamah, to the Day of Judgment. They are all, if we can imagine beyond time, all of them are saying the praying, making the same supplication. And when they say we, everyone who is saying that is included in the we. So they all supplicating God in the same way, not only for themselves, but for all their fellow believers. And they all saying Ameen to the same supplication. So he says, quote, I'm now quoting from him, a further veil was unfolded in my imagination, he says. I saw that the world of Islam has assumed the form of a huge mosque with Mecca and the Kaaba as the mihrab. The rows of all the Muslims performing the prayers were in circles facing the sacred mihrab, saying like me, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, you alone we worship, and from you alone we seek help. Guide us, carry on, Surah Al-Fatiha in the prayer. Each was both supplicating in the name of all and testifying and affirming it, also making all the others intercessors for himself. Then, when thinking what such a vast community claims could not be wrong and its supplications would not be rejected, inshallah. End of quote. And then Imam Nursi also adds, now quote again, and when affirming the vast self-evident benefits of performing the prayers in jama'ah, in congregation, another veil was yet unfolded. I saw that the universe and all the varieties of creatures were as though performing the prayers. So now it's not people, but all kinds of creatures, through their tongue, the tongue of their beings, and worshipping in a particular way to each of them, responding with extensive worship to the all-embracing rububiyyah of the glorious all-worshipped one, al-Ma'bud. Each group affirmed the testimonies and affirmation of divine unity, of Tawheed, of all the, each one was affirming the truth of all the claims of all the others, the testimony of all the others, while observing that this was the case, since they all take up positions proving the same result. Yet another veil was unfolded. I saw, just as the universe exclaims, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, with the tongue of disposition, lisan al-hal, and numerous of its parts declare it through their tongue of capacity and need, inherent need, and conscious being say it verbally, all thus displaying their worship before the Creator's compassionate rububiyyah. In just the same way, through the silent tongue of need and submission to their Creator's rububiyyah, all the particles, powers, and senses of my body, like those of all my companions in that vast congregation, the congregation here is all the world and all the universe, each resembling a tiny universe, each being, declared, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. In this way, they showed that they were acting in accordance with the divine will and command, and were at every instant in need of their Creator's rahmah and assistance and help. And just as entering through the door of the noon, this was the miracle of the noon, so this is all, he entered this through the door of the noon, I had observed it in wonderment, both the sacred mystery of performing the prayers in jama'ah, in congregation, and the beautiful miracle of the noon. So I went out from it, Alhamdulillah, all praise be to God, I exclaimed, end of quote. So now, how he starts with the congregation of believers, then adds all other beings, as they all ibadallah, all worshipping God, all in need of his rububiyyah, and they all follow the supreme sharia of the creation. The sharia of there is the sharia Qur'aniyah, which is fasting and all praying, and there is the sharia of the creation, which is everything obeys. Like you put a seed, it grows into an apple seed doesn't grow into an orange tree. It follows the divine command that was willed for it. So the sharia of the creation, that is God's order and laws of creation. And so with this awareness, this perception makes us submit and prostrate in bewilderment and love at all times, not only during the 5 daily prayers, but whenever we witness the submission of all creatures to their Rabb, to his order, to his command of be and it is. And by doing so, by submitting to his power, to his command of be and it is, they reflect his power, they reflect his knowledge, his wisdom, his rahmah, and his rububiyyah. And then he comes back to each individual being a whole universe in its own. And then just as we reflect on the world out, we can reflect on the world in and just be amazed at all the things that are going on. For me, for instance, to be able to speak, to hear, to understand, to see, subhanallah. And then we can only end up with subhanallah walhamdulillah. All praise be to God alone. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. Thank you.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yamina. It's 10 o'clock, but is there anybody who would like to offer a comment or a question at this time?
I have a non-content related question. So,
okay.
Should I go ahead?
Yes.
It will depend on how long the answer.
So it's there was a mention of a retreat coming up in March, I think, last week or the week before. Will there be an email sent out regarding that, the dates and the location? And my other question was, I was looking for the recordings of these sessions online and they weren't on the website. I was wondering if they will be uploaded there anytime soon, or how I can get access to them.
I turn to Maha for the first question and to Dr. Yamina for the second.
The second one is, I'm the one who usually update things on the website, and it's been a while since I haven't been there. So you will find everything on our YouTube channel, inshallah. And for
so the YouTube, the sessions are uploaded to YouTube right after? Or?
They are being uploaded right now, actually, as the session is going on.
Okay, thank you.
And after the retreat, Salam Alaikum, inshallah, it's going to be in Bloomington, Indiana, 2 full days, Saturday and Sunday, March 23rd, March 24th, and 25th. So please arrive Friday, March 23rd, and the closest airport is Indianapolis. You'll be hosted, inshallah, and the delay is from my end. We've changed the dates and we're trying to get the venue, but there will be a flyer that I think maybe Isra will send out and an email. Correct, Isra?
Yes. Yeah. We'll spread the word from Receiving Noor and inshallah through email, Facebook,
and because of
so inshallah. But the dates are set right, Maha, March 23rd to 25th. 23rd arrival,
and I think there will be no charge because the Bloomington community is hosting it, so it's their generosity and hospitality. Inshallah.
Yeah, and we would still, I think, encourage RSVP just so they know who's coming for sure, so they can. But all of that will be announced shortly, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you. Welcome. And it's all open to both men and women, inshallah. Okay, so